I want to get back to the extremism conversation, particularly as it pertains to the guy that rammed the car into 15 people in New Orleans. What is it about Islam or radical Islam? Because you'd mentioned that earlier that ISIS didn't claim this attack,
right?
So he was flying the ISIS flag and saying that he was doing it on behalf of ISIS. But, most people are aware that if there is an attack carried out by an organization, they're jumping up and down saying, we did this. And that wasn't the case with the guy in New Orleans. Can you go ahead and elaborate on that idea?
And even if they didn't have anything to do with it. So there was an attack in an immigration center in New York while I was in the Bureau, and I can't remember the organization. It wasn't LET. It was one of the Confederates, one of the groups associated with them. But they were definitely in the news at that time. People were concerned about them. And they immediately took credit for it. And the investigation by both New York State Police and the FBI showed that there was no connection with that at all. But it's kind of like under the ideology of that no press is, or that there's no such thing as bad press, that it's all good. So if somebody does something bad, just go ahead and take credit for it because it's all good anyway. ISIS could have said, "Oh yeah, he's definitely one of ours." We directed this to take whatever they're going to say to take credit for it. And even if the FBI came out and said, "No, there's no evidence of that. Doesn't matter. All press is good press." So it's odd that they didn't. That they haven't taken credit for it.
Why do you think that is? What does that change? Because there's got to be a change.
Because ISIS is not what it was before al-Baghdadi. So it's not a model. They fight against each other. There are multiple groups within ISIS fighting ISIS that claim that actually fly the ISIS flag. So ISIS Khorasan actually started off as the Khorasan group, which left ISIS because ISIS was too warm and fuzzy for them. So Khorasan was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to throw homosexuals off a roof? Well, we're going to light them on fire and throw them off a roof. Ha ha." So these groups all try to one up each other. So they're all really, my experience has been that the only truly monolithic Islamic-based ITO, International Terrorist Organization, is Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
All the rest of them are loose confederates with other terrorist groups for a time being operating under that flag. Kind of like Canada. You got the 11 provinces. We're all Canada. But no, ISIS, Canada, you get it.
You mentioned al-Zawahiri and you mentioned al-Baghdadi. And there's an idea on the left that essentially things are going to happen whether or not there are without a person. And I'm kind of the opinion that people really matter. So like you said that because al-Zawahiri is in jail,
KSM is in jail.
I'm sorry, KSM is in jail. There have been no significant attacks, and ISIS fell apart when al-Baghdadi was killed. Could you guys go ahead or could you elaborate on that idea? Do you think that these organizations really do need that man that is motivated to direct and instruct, or do you think that the ideology is enough?
So staying with the Jerry Nadler approach that that Antifa is just an ideology. This is where we get into trouble with the law, whether something is directed from a foreign terrorist organization or a homegrown violent extremist. A large-scale attack on the lines of 9/11 required not the heavy hand, but the guiding hand of ISIS in terms of funding. Al-Qaeda in terms of funding and training. And then what we see in ISIS relies so much on the highly motivated individual. Now, could an HVE, homegrown violent extremist, gather together some like-minded individuals and conduct a large-scale attack? Absolutely. It is a scary unanswered question why that hasn't happened yet. Kyle and I were talking over breakfast this morning. Why wouldn't one person gather together another 15 or 20 individuals and say, look, on this date, at this time, no matter where you are, you're going to pull out a weapon and start shooting, and then send these people off into the four corners of the United States and conduct an attack that way.
And there's basically no defense against that.
Yeah, people forget that Al-Qaeda came about. The goal was to get the United States out of the region. When George Bush 41 went in for Whack-a-Rack 1 to remove Saddam's forces out of Kuwait, UBL, Osama bin Laden, offered the services of Al-Qaeda to do that for them. And the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, KSA, said, no, we're going to have the United States do it. So we have to look at what the organization's goals are as to whether the possibility or the probability of them conducting an organized attack is. So Al-Qaeda is regional dominance. They wanted the United States out of the region. We get 9/11. ISIS is a confederation of various terrorist groups operating under the flag of ISIS. Could someone get together with other like-minded individuals and conduct a large-scale attack? Maybe not of the line of 9/11, but like we were talking about earlier, Kyle, just sending individuals out at a specified date and time and doing something bad. We have created the environment for that to happen by letting in, let's just lowball the number. Let's just say 10 million illegals in the country. If 1% of those are highly motivated Wahhabists, then you've got what? 10,000? We're talking about 10,000? Yeah, 10,000 people.
You don't even need that. You could have 0.1%.
Right.
Still have it be an absolute critical mass. That's
Right.
terrifying.
So, again, back to my earlier point that it's policies that make us safe, or actually enforcing our own policies and laws as opposed to running after individuals. So an organized attack of the likes of 9/11 directed by an FTO, unlikely. A inspired, homegrown, radical extremist, violent extremist, yes, absolutely. Could it take on the level of a 9/11 attack? Absolutely.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.